The night on the alien village was heavy with silence, broken only by the sound of footsteps on the rough ground. A crowd had gathered around the edge of an old well. Their eyes were cold, their voices sharp. In the center of the crowd stood an alien woman, her wrists bound with rough rope, her face covered in dirt and fear. She begged them to listen, but no one cared. "Throw her in," one of the guards shouted, and the crowd roared in agreement. She tried one last time. "I am innocent, please, I never did this crime." Her voice cracked, but the villagers only spat on the ground. They believed she was guilty. They believed her death was justice. With a push, they forced her forward. She stumbled, tried to fight back, but the ropes cut into her skin. Then, without mercy, she was thrown into the filthy well. The fall was long. Her scream echoed against the stone walls until it was cut short by a splash. The water inside was thick and rotten. The smell rose up, making the villagers turn away in disgust. The woman surfaced, gasping, her hands trying to stay above the muck. The well was dark and deep, slimy walls making it impossible to climb. The villagers looked down at her struggling form. Some laughed. Others turned their backs. For them, her death was already decided. Soon, the crowd began to leave, their footsteps fading into the night. Alone in the darkness, the alien woman cried. Her voice was weak, echoing off the stones. "Please, someone, help me." But no one answered. She was nothing but a criminal in their eyes, and criminals did not deserve mercy. Her body trembled in the cold water. The ropes on her wrists dragged her down. Strange shapes moved under the surface, creatures that lived in the filth, brushing against her legs. Fear pressed against her chest like a heavy weight. She screamed again, but her voice was softer now, weaker. Far away, on the edge of the village, a human traveler was passing through. He had come from another world, wandering from town to town, looking for work and shelter. His name was not important yet because in this moment only his choice mattered. He stopped when he heard it. A faint cry. It was distant, muffled, but filled with pain. He looked around, confused. The villagers were gone, the streets were empty. Again he heard the voice. "Please, help me." The human frowned. He should have ignored it. It was not his problem. This was not his village. Alien justice was not his business. If the villagers found him interfering, they could kill him too. But the voice came again, weaker than before, and his chest tightened. It was not just fear in the cry. It was the sound of someone who truly did not want to die. He followed the sound through the dark paths until he found the well. He leaned over the edge and looked down. His eyes widened. There, deep in the shadows, was the alien woman. She was struggling, her arms barely above the thick water, her face pale and hopeless. Their eyes met. For a brief moment, the world was silent. She whispered, almost too quiet to hear, "Please, don't leave me." The human stood frozen, his heart pounding. He knew what this meant. If he helped her, he would be going against the whole village. He could be hunted, punished, even killed. But if he walked away, she would die alone in the dark. The night wind howled across the empty square, carrying her weak cry into his ears once more. His fists clenched. His choice was clear. He whispered to himself, "Hold on. I'm coming, down." And with that, the story of danger and trust began. The human's hands gripped the edge of the old well as he leaned closer, his breath sharp in the cold night air. The alien woman looked up at him, her eyes wide, her face covered in dirt and fear. She was half sinking into the black water, the ropes dragging her down like heavy stones. He hesitated. His mind screamed at him to walk away. This was not his fight. He had only come to this village for food and rest, nothing more. If the villagers caught him helping her, they would treat him like a traitor. Humans were not welcome here, not trusted. One mistake could cost him his life. But his heart told a different story. He remembered the sound of her voice. The raw pain, the desperate plea. It was not the voice of a criminal. It was the voice of someone abandoned. He could not silence it. The woman coughed, choking on the filthy water. Please, I can't hold on. That broke the last of his doubt. He pulled off the pack on his back and dug through it quickly. Inside, he found a coil of rope he had been carrying for travel. His hands worked fast, tying one end to a stone pillar beside the well. He tossed the other end down toward her. "Grab it," he called. Her fingers shook as she reached for it. The rope slipped once, then twice, but finally she managed to grip it tight. She had no strength left to climb, her body weak from the cold and the water. "Don't let go," he shouted as he braced his legs and began to pull. The rope strained under her weight, cutting into his hands. His muscles burned. The well was deeper than he thought, and the water pulled at her like it wanted to keep her forever. Slowly, inch by inch, he lifted her. Her body scraped against the slimy stones and she whimpered in pain, but she held on. He pulled harder, sweat dripping down his forehead, even in the night chill. Halfway up, disaster struck. The rope groaned and fibers snapped. The woman screamed as she slipped a few feet back down, crashing against the wall. The sound echoed like a death bell. "No!" the human shouted, tightening his grip. His arms shook violently. If the rope broke, she would fall back into the darkness. Summoning every bit of strength, he pulled with everything he had. His arms felt like fire. His back screamed, but slowly she began to rise again. He leaned back, using the pillar for support, dragging her higher and higher. Finally, her hand reached the edge of the well. With one last pull, he hauled her out, collapsing onto the ground beside her. They both lay there, gasping for breath. The woman turned her head to look at him, her eyes filled with disbelief. You came," he nodded, his chest still heaving. "I couldn't walk away." But their moment of relief didn't last. From the shadows of the village, footsteps echoed. Voices whispered angrily. Torches lit up, casting sharp light across the square. The villagers had returned, and their eyes fell on the human kneeling beside the woman they had condemned. The crowd grew louder, filled with fury. "He helped her," one shouted. "He defied our justice." The human's heart pounded. He knew what was coming. Saving her was not just an act of mercy. It was now an act of rebellion. He stood slowly, placing himself between the angry villagers and the weak alien woman. His jaw tightened. His voice was steady. "If you want her, you'll have to go through me." The air grew heavy. The villagers stopped, shocked by his defiance. A lone human against an entire crowd. The night had turned into something dangerous, and the story was only beginning. The villagers pressed closer, their angry faces glowing in the light of torches. The human stood tall, his body tense, his fists clenched. Behind him, the alien woman struggled to breathe, her body still weak from the filthy water. She tried to sit up, but her arms trembled and gave out. The crowd shouted louder. "Throw them both back in, let them rot together." The human's heart pounded. He had saved her from the well, but now it seemed useless. They were surrounded. He looked left and right, searching for a way out. There was none. One of the guards stepped forward, his spear pointed directly at the human's chest. "You dare to break our law, outsider? You will pay the price." The human didn't move. His voice was calm but sharp. "If your law is murder, then it's no law worth following." The villagers gasped at his words. No one had ever spoken against their rules so boldly. The guard's grip tightened on his weapon. For a moment it seemed like the human would be struck down right there. But then the alien woman coughed and whispered, her voice weak but clear. "Please, don't hurt him. He only saved me." Her words silenced the crowd for a second. Some looked uneasy, but others only grew angrier. The guard snarled, "Silence! You are guilty, and his crime is worse, defying judgment." The human knew he couldn't win in a fight against the whole village. He had to think fast. He grabbed the rope still tied to the pillar, wrapping it around his hand. In a sudden movement, he swung it like a whip, knocking the guard's spear aside. Gasps rose from the crowd as the spear clattered to the ground. The human bent quickly, pulling the woman to her feet. She was weak, leaning heavily on him, but he whispered, "We need to move. Now." They staggered forward, the villagers rushing after them. The human guided her toward the narrow alleys between stone houses. He didn't know the village well, but he trusted his instincts. The chase began. Torches flickered behind them as voices shouted, "Catch them." Feet pounded the ground, closing in fast. The human pulled the woman into a narrow passage, the walls so close his shoulders scraped the stone. They ducked into shadows, trying to stay quiet, but the woman's ragged breathing gave them away. "There," someone shouted, and more footsteps thundered toward them. The human cursed under his breath. He lifted the woman into his arms, ignoring the pain in his muscles, and sprinted down the path. She clung to him weakly, whispering, Why are you doing this?" He didn't answer. Not yet. His lungs burned as he ran, his mind racing for a plan. Ahead, the alley opened into a courtyard with no exit. A dead end. The crowd poured in behind them, trapping them against the wall. The human set the woman down gently, then turned to face the mob. The villagers advanced, their eyes full of hate. The same guard picked up another spear and pointed it at the human. "Your courage ends here, outsider." The human's eyes darted around the courtyard. His gaze fell on a stack of wooden barrels leaning against the wall. In a heartbeat, an idea sparked. He grabbed one, rolled it forward with all his strength, and it crashed into the first row of villagers. They stumbled, some falling to the ground. The sudden chaos gave him a chance. He lifted the woman again and scrambled up a low ledge beside, the barrels pulling her after him. The villagers shouted in fury, but the human didn't stop. He climbed higher, the woman gasping as he dragged her up with him. From the top of the wall, he looked down at the angry crowd below. His voice was steady, even though his body trembled with exhaustion. "You'll have to try harder than that." With that, he carried the woman over the wall and disappeared into the night, the villagers' furious cries echoing behind them. The rescue from the well had turned into a desperate escape, and their fight for survival had only just begun. The human's feet hit the ground hard as he landed on the other side of the wall. The alien woman clung to his shoulder, barely able to stand. Behind them, the furious cries of the villagers echoed, torches flashing as shadows moved across the wall. "Find them! Don't let them escape!" someone shouted. The human pulled the woman forward, guiding her into the darkness of the outer path. The village behind them was a maze of light and sound, but beyond the last houses lay only the wild forest. If they could reach it, they might have a chance. His breath came heavy. The woman stumbled, her weak legs shaking, but he refused to let her fall. "Stay with me," he whispered. "Just a little farther." The ground turned rough as they left, the stone paths, and stepped onto dirt. The smell of damp leaves filled the air, mixing with the distant stink of the well still clinging to the woman. Crickets sang somewhere in the trees, and the wind rattled branches like bones. Suddenly, a torchlight flared behind them. 3 guards appeared, running fast. Their armor clinked, their spears gleaming. The human cursed under his breath and pulled the woman into the cover of tall grass. They crouched low, the woman trembling against him. The guards slowed, scanning the darkness. One of them muttered, "They can't have gone far." The human held his breath, his hand pressed against the woman's mouth gently, urging silence. She closed her eyes, trying not to shake. The guards passed by, their torches moving away, their voices fading. The human exhaled slowly. "We move now," he whispered. They crept through the grass, moving deeper into the forest. The moonlight slipped through the trees, silver shadows guiding their path. But every step felt like danger. Twigs snapped under their feet, and the woman's body was growing colder by the minute. "Why did you save me?" she asked weakly, her voice no more than a whisper. The human didn't look at her. His eyes stayed on the path ahead. "Because no one else would." She tried to speak again, but a sudden howl cut through the night. Not a villager this time. Something else. Something from the forest. The woman stiffened, fear flashing in her eyes. The human tightened his grip on her arm. Keep moving. They hurried, the sound of pursuit growing behind them once again. The villagers had spread out, their torches flickering in the distance like angry stars. The human's chest tightened. They were being hunted, cornered between men and beasts. Up ahead, the forest opened into a ravine. A narrow wooden bridge stretched across it, old and broken, swaying in the wind. It was their only way forward. The human led her onto the bridge, the wood groaning under their weight. Below, the ravine yawned wide, filled with jagged rocks and a black river rushing through. Halfway across, torches appeared on the other side. More villagers. Trapped again. The human's mind raced. He looked behind them. Torches there too. The bridge shook under the weight of danger on both sides. The woman's eyes filled with tears. There's no way out. But the human clenched his jaw. There's always a way. He spotted the ropes holding the bridge together. With one sharp motion, he pulled the small knife from his boot and slashed at them. The villagers shouted in shock as the rope snapped. The bridge lurched violently. The woman screamed as the wood fell away, but the human grabbed one of the side ropes and held her tight. The bridge collapsed into the ravine, taking the villagers with it. For a long moment they swung above the dark river, clinging to the rope. The woman buried her face against his chest, shaking. The human's arms burned with pain, but he held on. Inch by inch he climbed toward the far cliff, pulling her with him. Finally, they reached solid ground. They lay there, gasping, as the sounds of the broken bridge echoed through the night. The torches were gone, the shouts silenced. For now they were safe. The woman looked at him, her eyes full of questions. "Who are you?" she whispered. The human turned his face toward the dark forest ahead. "No one important," he said, quietly. "But I'm not leaving you behind." And with that, they disappeared into the trees, the night swallowing them whole. The forest was silent except for the sound of their footsteps crushing dry leaves. The human guided the alien woman deeper into the shadows, his arm wrapped around her to keep her steady. Her body was weak, trembling from cold, but her eyes were alive with fear. Every snap of a twig made her flinch. Every shadow felt like an enemy. Finally, when they reached a small clearing surrounded by tall trees, the human stopped. He set her down gently on a fallen log. Her breathing was heavy, her face pale in the silver light of the moon. "You need to rest," he said firmly, kneeling beside her. She shook her head. "No, no rest. They will find us." "They won't. Not tonight," he answered. But his eyes scanned the forest anyway, alert for danger. He knew the villagers would not give up so easily. For a long moment they sat in silence, listening to the wind move through the trees. Then the woman spoke, her voice low and filled with sorrow. "They threw me into that well because I carry something they fear," she whispered. "Not because of any crime." The human turned to her, frowning. "What do you mean?" She looked at him with tired eyes. "I was a messenger. I carried knowledge, words that could change everything. My rival, he wanted that message silenced. He told lies about me, convinced the people I was guilty of treason. And so, they condemned me." The human's brows furrowed. "What kind of message?" She hesitated, glancing around the clearing as if the trees themselves might be listening. "A warning," she said finally. "A warning about something greater than this village, greater than my rival's ambition. A shadow rising in the galaxy." The human's stomach tightened. He leaned closer. "What shadow?" Her voice trembled as she spoke. "An army. A power hidden in the dark corners of space. They are gathering, building strength. Soon they will come, and when they do, whole worlds will burn. My people knew, but they chose silence. They wanted to keep their trade routes safe, their lives simple. But silence means death. Someone had to speak." The human's heart pounded. He had heard rumors in his travels, whispers of fleets moving unseen, colonies disappearing without a trace. Now those rumors sounded real. "Why tell me?" he asked carefully. She gave a weak smile. "Because you chose to save me when everyone else turned away. That makes you different. That makes you someone I can trust." He looked away for a moment, his jaw tight. He hadn't saved her for secrets or messages. He had saved her because it was right. But now he understood. Her survival mattered for more than just her life. "Your rival knows about this?" he asked. She nodded. "Yes. That is why he wanted me gone. If the message spreads, he loses his power. If I am silenced, he controls the story." The human rubbed his face, frustration and exhaustion pressing on him. He had wanted only a quiet night, a safe village. Instead, he had walked into something dangerous, something bigger than he had ever imagined. The woman reached out, her hand trembling as it touched his arm. "If I die, the message dies with me. But if I live, maybe the galaxy still has hope." Her word struck him harder than the angry shouts of the villagers. He realized then that saving her from the well had only been the beginning. He had stepped into a path that could lead to war, betrayal, and death. He met her gaze. "Then we'll make sure you live, no matter what it takes." For the first time since the night began, her eyes softened with something close to relief. She whispered, "Thank you, human." But the forest around them stirred, and the human's hand went to his knife. The night was not safe, and the truth had only made their journey more dangerous. The clearing felt calm for only a moment. The alien woman's words still hung heavy in the air, but before the human could ask more, a sound broke through the night. A distant horn, then another. The woman's eyes widened. "They've found us." The human's body stiffened. He knew that sound. It was the call of hunters. The villagers were spreading through the forest, driving them like prey. He grabbed her hand and pulled her to her feet. "We have to move now." The forest came alive with noise. Branches snapped, voices shouted, and torchlight flickered between the trees. The human dragged the woman down a narrow trail, his ears sharp to every sound. The forest floor was uneven, roots clawing at his boots, branches tearing at his clothes. Behind them, dogs barked, alien hunting beasts with glowing eyes and sharp fangs. Their howls cut through the night, closer with every second. The woman stumbled, almost falling, but the human lifted her again. "Don't stop. Just run." The chase grew faster, more desperate. The human's lungs burned, but he pushed himself harder. The woman's breathing was shallow, her body weak, but somehow she kept moving. Suddenly the path split in two. To the left, a wide trail that led deeper into the forest, but the torchlight was already shining there. To the right, a steep slope that fell toward a black river. The human didn't think twice. He pulled her toward the slope. They slid down together, dirt and stones tumbling with them. The woman gasped as the ground cut her skin, but the human wrapped his arm around her to shield her. At the bottom, they landed hard near the rushing water. The river roared, its current fast and wild. The woman shook her head, fear in her eyes. "We can't cross this, it will kill us." The human looked back up the slope. Torches burned brighter, voices shouted, and the hunting beasts were already charging down. They had no choice. He grabbed her arm. "Hold on to me. Don't let go." Without another word, he pulled her into the river. The icy water swallowed them instantly, the current dragging them downstream. The woman screamed, water rushing over her face, but the human held her tight. He kicked with all his strength, guiding them toward the far bank. The hunters reached the slope, their torches lighting the riverbank. Arrows whistled through the air, splashing into the water around them. The human ducked, pulling the woman under, their bodies hidden by the dark current. The river slammed them against rocks, tore at their grip, but somehow he kept her close. His lungs screamed for air, but he refused to let go. Finally, after what felt like forever, they reached the far side. The human dragged her out of the water, both of them gasping, their bodies shaking with cold. They collapsed under the cover of thick bushes. Across the river, the hunters shouted angrily, their torches glowing like angry stars. But the current was too strong to cross quickly. The human and the woman had bought themselves time. The woman coughed, water dripping from her lips. She looked at him with wide eyes. "You risked everything for me again." Why? The human leaned against a tree, breathing hard. Because if I don't, no one else will. The forest was quiet again, except for the distant roars of frustrated hunters. The woman's eyes softened with something new, not just fear, but trust. But the human knew the chase wasn't over. The hunters would not give up. They would regroup, find another way. And worse, the secret she carried was still in danger. He looked up at the dark sky, the stars hidden behind thick clouds. "We have to keep moving," he said, his voice steady despite the exhaustion. The woman nodded weakly. Together they rose again, stepping deeper into the night, knowing the hunt had only just begun. The forest stretched endlessly, dark and silent after the roar of the river. The human walked carefully, every muscle in his body aching. The alien woman leaned against him, her legs trembling, but she refused to stop. She knew what was chasing them. She knew why they would never give up. After what felt like hours, they found shelter under a huge fallen tree, its roots twisted like claws rising from the ground. The human guided her beneath the hollow space. It was cramped, but hidden, safe for the moment. He sat down beside her, his chest rising and falling like a drum. "We need to rest before we collapse." She nodded weakly, curling her arms around herself. For a long time, neither spoke. The sound of the river faded into the distance, replaced only by the rustle of leaves. The human's eyes stayed on the forest, alert, but his mind was full of questions. Finally, he turned to her. "Back there, you said you carried a message. You risked your life for it. What is it?" Her face tightened. For a moment she looked away, as if speaking the words might make them real. Then she whispered, "It's not just a message. It's a truth the galaxy refuses to see." The human's brow furrowed. "What truth?" Her voice was soft but filled with fear. "There is an empire rising in the outer stars, not like your human nations, not like my people. This one grows in silence. They enslave whole worlds, strip them, and move on. No one dare speak of it because to speak is to invite their wrath. But I saw it with my own eyes." The human's stomach twisted. He had heard whispers during his travels, ships that vanished, colonies gone without a trace. Now it fit together like pieces of a broken puzzle. She continued, her hands trembling. "My rival was part of it. He struck a deal with them. He promised silence from our people in exchange for power. I refused. That's why he framed me. That's why I was thrown into the well." The human's jaw tightened. "So saving you means I'm standing against more than just one village." "Yes," she said, her eyes locking onto his. "It means you've placed yourself against an empire of shadows." The words hit him hard. He was only a traveler, a wanderer. He had no army, no power. But now, because he had chosen to listen, to one cry for help, he had stepped into a storm larger than anything he had faced before. Her hand touched his arm, weak but steady. "I should not have told you. It's a curse to know. But you saved me, and I cannot carry it alone anymore." The human looked into her eyes. They were full of sorrow, but also something else. Hope. She had been left to die, but she still believed the truth mattered. He nodded slowly. "Then we'll make sure the message is heard. If this empire is coming, someone has to fight back." Her lips trembled, but a faint smile appeared. "You are not like the others. You are human. Different." Before he could answer, the forest shifted. A branch cracked in the distance. The woman's eyes widened. The hunters had not given up. The human pressed a finger to his lips. Silence wrapped around them like a blanket. But his heart was no longer just afraid, it burned with purpose. The secret was out, and now he carried it too.